Captain Lee Taemin stood at the front window of his ship looking at Earth getting smaller and smaller below them, the blue planet that held all of human history was now just a dot in the darkness of space. His hands were steady on the control panel, but his heart was beating fast. This was the biggest day in human history, and he was leading it. The ship New Dawn was not the prettiest thing humans had ever built. It looked more like a flying metal box with engines stuck on the back, but it was strong and it worked, and that was what mattered to humans. They had spent 200 years learning how to build things that did not break when they needed them most. Dr. Kim Sora walked up behind the captain and looked out at the stars. With him, she was the smartest person on the ship and maybe one of the smartest humans alive. Her job was to study anything they found out there in the deep darkness between the stars. She had been dreaming of this day since she was a little girl. Reading books about space. 50 humans were on this ship, and every one of them knew they might never see Earth again. They were going to a star system called Kepler that was so far away it would take months to get there even with their fastest engines. But they were not scared. They were excited. This was what humans did. They went to places no one had ever been before, high above Earth, where no human eye could see them. 3 ships waited in the darkness. These ships were not made by human hands. They were long and smooth, like knives made of silver metal, and they had been watching Earth for many months. The creatures inside these ships were called the Valkyrie, and they ruled 12 star systems. Commander Veltar stood in his command room looking at reports about the humans. His skin was gray like stone, and his eyes were black like the space between stars. He had been alive for 300 years, and in all that time he had never seen a species develop space travel so fast. Most species took thousands of years to build ships that could travel between stars. Humans had done it in less than 200. The reports on his desk made him worried. The humans had built their first rocket only 60 years ago. Now they had ships that could travel faster than light and weapons that could destroy cities. Their technology was rough and simple, but it worked, and that made them dangerous. Back on the New Dawn, engineer Yoon Hae-jin was checking all the ship systems for the 100th time today. She had built half of these systems herself, and she knew every bolt and wire. The ship was ready for anything space could throw at them. She had made sure of that. Her father had been a shipbuilder, and her grandfather before him. Humans had been building things that floated and flew for thousands of years. The ship's weapons officer Park Jin-woo was running tests on their defense systems. They had missiles that could punch holes through mountains and energy shields that could stop most attacks. The weapons were not as fancy as what some species might have, but they were reliable and deadly. Humans had spent most of their history fighting each other, so they knew how to build things that could hurt their enemies. Deep in space, the Valkyrie commander received a message from his home world. The High Council had made their decision. The humans were too dangerous to be allowed to spread across the galaxy. They developed technology too fast, and they were too aggressive. Every species the Valkyrie had met before had been peaceful and easy to control. But these humans were different. Commander Veltar had read the reports about human history, and what he saw scared him. Humans had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They had built weapons that could destroy their entire planet and had almost used them several times. Most species that developed such weapons destroyed themselves. Humans had somehow survived and grown stronger. The message from the High Council was clear. The humans must be stopped before they could build more ships and spread to other worlds. The Valkyrie had stopped dozens of dangerous species before. This should be just another easy job. They had better ships, better weapons, and thousands of years of experience. But as Commander Veltar watched the human ship moving through space, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt uncertain. These humans did not act like other species. They did not send messages asking for permission to travel through space. They just went where they wanted to go, like they owned the galaxy navigator Choi. Min-ho was plotting their course to the Kepler system when something strange appeared on his screens. Large objects were moving toward them from 3 different directions. The objects were too big to be asteroids and too fast to be natural. He called Captain Lee to the navigation station and showed him what he was seeing. Dr. Kim ran every scan she could think of on the approaching objects. The results made her hands shake. These were ships much bigger than anything humans had ever built. and they were made from materials that should not exist. The technology reading her instruments was hundreds of years ahead of anything Earth had. Captain Lee looked at the scanner readings and felt his blood turn cold. They were surrounded by alien ships. Each one was 3 times bigger than the new Dawn, and there were more coming. The crew had trained for many different problems, but meeting aliens had never been one of them. The alien ships began to appear as their invisible shields turned off one by one. 3 massive vessels showed themselves around the human ship. They were beautiful in a deadly way, like swords made of starlight, but Captain Lee was not impressed by their beauty. He was thinking about how to fight them. Communications Officer Han Soo-jin received a message from the alien ships. The voice that spoke was cold and without emotion. It spoke perfect English, which meant these aliens had been watching Earth for a long time. The message was simple: stop your ship and prepare to be boarded. Captain Lee took the communication device from Han Soo-jin and spoke into it. His voice was calm and steady, even though his heart was pounding. He told the aliens that humans had come in peace, but they were ready for war if that was what the aliens wanted. The words seemed to surprise the alien Commander Veltar could not believe what he was hearing. Most species begged for mercy when they saw Valkyrie warships. These humans sounded like they were ready to fight a battle they could not possibly win. He had never encountered such foolishness or such courage in a species so young. The standoff continued for long minutes as both sides studied each other. The humans ran every scan they could on the alien ships, while the aliens wondered why these creatures were not surrendering. The crew of the New Dawn prepared their weapons and waited for their captain's orders. Dr. Kim made a discovery that changed everything. The alien ships used energy fields for protection, and their weapons charged up before firing. This meant humans might have a chance if they were smart and fast and very lucky. She shared this information with the crew, who began planning their response. Captain Lee knew they were outgunned and outnumbered, but he also knew something the aliens did not. Humans had spent thousands of years learning how to fight against impossible odds. Every war, every battle, every struggle had taught them something new about surviving when survival seemed impossible. The alien commander gave them one final warning: surrender now or be destroyed. Captain Lee looked around at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that had carried humans from caves to the stars. He spoke into the communication device again, telling the aliens that humans did not surrender. What happened next would change the galaxy forever. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and it would start with the sound of weapons firing in the darkness between stars. The aliens were about to learn why Earth's history was written in blood and why humans never gave up when their survival was at stake. The battle was coming, and Captain Lee Taemin was ready to show the galaxy what humans could do when their backs were against the wall. The alien ships waited in the darkness like metal wolves circling their prey. 6 hours had passed since the first contact, and neither side had moved. Commander Veltar was growing angry at these stubborn humans. Most species would have surrendered by now, but these creatures seemed ready to die rather than give up. Captain Lee used every minute to prepare his crew for the fight that was coming. Chief Engineer Yoon Hae-jin worked like a woman possessed, crawling through the ship's systems and making changes that might keep them alive a few minutes longer. She knew their weapons were simple compared to what the aliens had, but humans had always found ways to make simple things deadly. The alien commander decided to show the humans what real power looked like. He ordered his gunners to target a large asteroid floating nearby. The plasma cannons charged up with a sound like thunder building in the distance. Then beams of pure energy lanced out and turned the space rock into glowing dust. In seconds, the human crew watched the display of alien firepower, but they did not panic. Navigator Choi Min-ho was already plotting escape routes, while communications Officer Han Soo-jin recorded everything the aliens did. Dr. Kim studied the energy readings from the alien weapons and made notes about how long they took to charge up. Commander Veltar sent another message to the human ship. He expected fear in their voices, but instead, Captain Lee sounded calm and ready. The human captain told the aliens that his people had seen worse things than energy beams, and they were still here. The alien commander felt something cold move in his chest. The Valkyrie had conquered 47 different species in their long history. Every single one had begged for mercy when they saw the power of the Empire. These humans were different, and Commander Veltar did not like different. Different meant dangerous, and dangerous meant problems. Dr. Kim made a breakthrough while studying the alien communication signals. The Valkyrie technology worked on patterns that repeated themselves over and over. This made their system strong, but it also made them predictable. She shared her discovery with the weapons team, who began working on ways to use this weakness. The final ultimatum came at the 6-hour mark. Commander Veltar told the humans they had 1 minute to surrender or his ships would turn the new dawn into space dust. Captain Lee gathered his crew around him and asked if anyone wanted to go home. Instead of fear, he saw determination in their eyes. Security Chief Lim Donghyun was the first to speak. He said his grandfather had fought in wars where humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had won because they never gave up. The rest of the crew nodded and took their battle stations. Every human on the ship knew they might die, but they would die fighting. First shots came from the human ship, not the aliens. Captain Lee ordered Weapons Officer Park to fire a spread of kinetic missiles at the lead Valkyrie vessel. The projectiles were just chunks of metal moving very fast, but the alien shields stopped them easily. Commander Veltar laughed at the pathetic human attack, but the missiles were not meant to hurt the alien ship. They were a distraction while Engineer Yoon launched tiny drones from hidden tubes around the new dawn. These small devices flew toward the alien ships like metal insects and attached themselves to the hulls where the sensors could not see them. The drones began jamming the alien communication systems and scrambling their targeting computers. Commander Veltar suddenly found his ships could not talk to each other properly, and their weapons were having trouble locking onto the human vessel. The alien commander felt his first moment of real concern. Captain Lee ordered his ship to move closer to the alien fleet. This was the opposite of what any sane captain would do when facing superior firepower, but humans had never been accused of being completely sane. The new dawn accelerated toward the Valkyrie ships like a missile aimed at the heart of their formation. The alien ships opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending beams of deadly energy toward the approaching human vessel, but Captain Lee had studied their attack patterns during the 6-hour standoff. The new dawn twisted and rolled through space, dodging between the energy beams like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Commander Veltar could not believe what he was seeing. His ships were built for long-range combat where their superior firepower could destroy enemies before they got close. The humans were doing something no species had ever tried before they were charging straight into the teeth of his weapons. The new dawn reached close range and Captain Lee gave the order that changed everything. Weapons Officer Park launched modified nuclear missiles at point-blank range into the alien formation. The warheads had been changed by Dr. Kim to create massive electromagnetic pulses. When they exploded, the electromagnetic waves washed over the Valkyrie ships like invisible fire. Their energy shields flickered and died while their targeting systems went crazy. Commander Veltar watched in horror as his technologically superior vessels suddenly became nearly blind and helpless. Security Chief Lim took advantage of the confusion to launch boarding pods at the nearest alien ship. The Valkyrie had never faced enemies willing to fight hand-to-hand in the vacuum of space. Human soldiers in powered armor smashed through the alien hull and began fighting their way toward the ship's control center. The aliens inside the ship panicked when they saw humans coming through their walls. The Valkyrie had grown soft after centuries of easy victories. They had forgotten how to fight when their technology failed them. But humans had never stopped fighting each other, so they remembered how to use simple weapons effectively. Engineer Yoon kept the new dawn running even as alien plasma beams burned holes through the hull. She rerouted power from damaged systems and kept the engines working through pure determination. The ship was hurt, but it was still fighting, and that was all that mattered. Dr. Kim coordinated the attack on the alien ships from her science station. She had found weak points in their design where human weapons could do real damage. The Valkyrie ships were built to resist energy weapons, but they were vulnerable to old-fashioned explosions and kinetic impacts. The boarding party, led by Security Chief Lim, fought through the alien ship room by room. The Valkyrie warriors were tall and strong, but they had never faced enemies who fought with such coordination and determination. The humans moved like parts of a single deadly machine. Commander Veltar realized his fleet was in real trouble. 3 of his ships were badly damaged, and 1 was being overrun by human boarders. He had started this fight, expecting an easy victory, but these humans were teaching his people new lessons about warfare. The turning point came when the human boarding party captured the alien ship's navigation computer. Dr. Kim accessed the alien databases and found information that made her hands shake. The Valkyrie Empire controlled 12 star systems and had enslaved dozens of different species. But more importantly, she learned that the Valkyrie ruled through fear and overwhelming technology. They had never faced enemies who could match their determination or exceed their adaptability. The Empire was built on the idea that they were superior to all other life forms. Captain Lee received the intelligence from Dr. Kim and realized this battle was about more than just survival. The Valkyrie had to be stopped before they could enslave humanity like they had enslaved so many other species. The crew of the New Dawn had just become freedom fighters. The alien fleet began to retreat after losing 4 ships to human attacks. Commander Veltar could not believe he was running from a single enemy vessel, but he had no choice. His remaining ships were damaged and his crews were demoralized. These humans had done the impossible as the Valkyrie ships disappeared into hyperspace. Captain Lee surveyed the damage to his vessel. 15 crew members had died in the battle, but they had proven something important: humans would not be easy prey for anyone, regardless of their technology or numbers. The crew began repairs while Dr. Kim studied the captured alien technology. She realized that human engineering was not inferior to alien science, it was just different. Humans built things to be repaired and modified in the field, while aliens built things to be perfect from the start. Navigator Choi plotted a course to the nearest planet where they could make proper repairs. The crew worked together with the efficiency that came from training and desperation. They knew the aliens would be back. With more ships and better plans, Captain Lee stood on his damaged bridge and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was much bigger and more dangerous than humanity had imagined, but it was also full of opportunities for a species brave enough to fight for their freedom. The age of human expansion had begun with blood and fire and determination. The New Dawn limped toward Kepler 442b, with smoke drifting from holes burned through her hull. Captain Lee watched his crew work to repair the damage while keeping one eye on the long-range sensors. The Valkyrie would return, and when they did, they would bring more ships and better weapons. Dr. Kim worked day and night studying the alien technology they had captured from the boarding mission. Every circuit and power cell taught her something new about how the Valkyrie built their machines. She discovered that alien technology was very advanced but also very specialized. When it broke, it was hard to fix. Engineer Yoon took the opposite approach. She began modifying human systems to work with alien parts. The result was ugly and strange, but it was also effective. Human engineering focused on making things work even when they were damaged, while alien technology focused on perfect performance. The crew reached the planet after 3 days of careful flying. They found a world covered in purple oceans and silver mountains. It was beautiful but empty of intelligent life. Captain Lee ordered the ship to land near a large deposit of metals that Engineer Yoon could use for repairs. While the crew worked on the ship, Dr. Kim made a discovery that changed everything. The captured Valkyrie navigation computer contained the locations of all 12 worlds in their empire. More importantly, it contained information about their military forces and defensive capabilities. The data showed that the Valkyrie Empire was not as strong as they pretended to be. Their fleets were spread thin across many star systems, and most of their ships were old designs that had not been updated in decades. The Empire ruled through fear and reputation more than actual military power. Security Chief Lim organized the crew into repair teams while keeping watch for alien scouts. The humans worked with the efficiency that came from knowing their lives depended on getting their ship ready for battle. They had no idea when the Valkyrie would return, but they knew it would be soon. Navigator Choi used the alien star charts to plot possible escape routes if the repairs were not finished in time. He found several nearby systems where humans could hide and continue their mission, but Captain Lee had no intention of running. The crew of the New Dawn had started something, and they were going to finish it. The Valkyrie High Council met in emergency session on their home world of Valkyron. The 12 council members had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years and had never faced a military defeat like this. The humans had destroyed 4 warships and captured another in a single. Battle Chancellor Mordic was the oldest and most experienced council member. He had overseen the conquest of 23 different species during his long life, but the reports from Commander Veltar worried him. These humans fought differently from any enemy the Empire had faced. The Council decided to send Admiral Kethver with a fleet of 200 ships to destroy the humans completely. Admiral Kethver was their best military commander and had never lost a battle in 300 years of service. If anyone could crush these dangerous humans, it was him. Back on Kepler 442b, engineer Yoon made breakthrough discoveries while integrating alien technology with human systems, the Valkyrie. Energy shields were more efficient than human designs, but they were also more fragile when overloaded. They failed completely. Instead of degrading gradually, Dr. Kim worked with weapons officer Park to design new weapons that combined human kinetics with alien energy systems. The result was missiles that could punch through any known armor and energy beams that could cut through starship hulls like butter. The crew spent 3 weeks turning their exploration ship into a weapon of war. They built automated defense platforms from salvaged materials and scattered them throughout the asteroid belt around the star. These platforms would give them extra firepower when the aliens returned. Captain Lee coordinated the defense preparations while studying everything Dr. Kim had learned about Valkyrie tactics. The aliens relied on overwhelming firepower and technological superiority to win battles. They had never learned to adapt when their standard approaches failed communications. Officer Hamsu Jin managed to establish contact with Earth using modified Valkyrie communication equipment. The message she sent warned humanity about the alien threat and provided detailed information about their technology and military capabilities. The response from Earth surprised everyone, including Captain Lee. Instead of panic or orders to retreat, humanity began mobilizing for total war. Every nation contributed resources to building warships based on the lessons learned from the New Dawn's battle with the Valkyrie. Admiral Kethver arrived in the Kepler system with his massive fleet, expecting to find human survivors hiding on the planet's surface. Instead, he discovered that the entire star system had been turned into a fortress. The humans had been busy during their 3 weeks of preparation. The New Dawn emerged from behind the planet, accompanied by dozens of automated defense platforms. The ship looked different now, with additional armor and weapons that mixed human and alien technology. Captain Lee had turned his exploration vessel into something new and deadly. The second battle began when human defense platforms launched coordinated strikes against the Valkyrie formation. The aliens' energy shields deflected most attacks, but the sheer volume of fire forced them to group together for mutual protection. This was exactly what Captain Lee had hoped. Fourth New Dawn used the planet's gravity to slingshot around the world and attack the alien fleet from an unexpected angle. Admiral Kethver found himself fighting not just a ship, but an entire star system that had been weaponized by human ingenuity and determination. What shocked the Valkyrie most was human tactical flexibility. While alien fleets used predetermined battle formations, the humans constantly changed their strategy based on what was happening. Navigator Choi used asteroid fields and planetary rings to hide the ship's movements. The battle continued for days as human determination clashed with alien numbers. Admiral Kethver lost ships steadily to human ambush tactics and adaptive strategies. His forces were designed for crushing single targets, not fighting integrated defense networks that learned from every engagement. Dr. Kim discovered that Valkyrie ships had a critical weakness in their power distribution systems. A coordinated electromagnetic pulse attack could overload their entire fleet if timed correctly. She shared this information with Captain Lee, who began planning a decisive strike. Automated defense platforms began herding the alien ships into a tight formation while the New Dawn prepared for a final attack. Security Chief Lim loaded every nuclear warhead on the ship with electromagnetic pulse generators based on Dr. Kim's specifications. Captain Lee ordered his ship on a direct course toward the center of the alien fleet. Admiral Kethver could not believe the humans were attempting another suicide charge, but he had learned to respect their tactical unpredictability. The Valkyrie ships prepared to concentrate their fire. The New Dawn released its entire missile payload at point-blank range. While diving through the center of the alien formation, the electromagnetic pulses from dozens of warheads created a chain reaction that overloaded the Valkyrie fleet's power systems. Half of Admiral Kethver's ships went dark as their systems shut down to prevent total power core failures. The remaining vessels found themselves fighting blind while human defense platforms picked them off one by one. The galaxy's premier military force was learning new lessons about warfare. Engineer Yoon kept the New Dawn flying even as plasma beams burned through the hull around her. She had cross-trained every crew member to handle multiple jobs, so when systems failed, there was always someone ready to take over. This was human adaptability at its finest. The tide of battle turned when a lucky shot from a human defense platform penetrated Admiral Kethver's command ship. The alien admiral died at his post, unable to understand how primitive humans had defeated the most advanced military in the galaxy. With their command structure destroyed, the remaining Valkyrie ships began retreating in disorder. Some fled toward their home systems, while others scattered in random directions. The great fleet that had come to crush humanity was broken beyond repair. Captain Lee surveyed the aftermath of the battle from his damaged bridge. 38 crew members had been lost, but they had achieved something that would echo through galactic history. A single human ship and its automated defenses had defeated a fleet of 2H. News of Admiral Kethver's defeat traveled through Valkyrie space faster than their fastest ships could fly. The High Council met in continuous session as reports came in of rebellions breaking out on 6 different worlds. Species that had been slaves for centuries were rising up against their masters. Chancellor Mordek stood before a holographic display showing the entire Empire. Red warning lights marked worlds where rebels were fighting Valkyrie garrison forces. The humans had done more than win a battle. They had inspired a galaxy-wide revolution against the Empire. The council chambers echoed with angry voices as the 12 rulers argued about how to respond. Some wanted to negotiate with the humans, while others demanded total war against Earth itself. Chancellor Mordek listened to the debate while studying intelligence reports about human industrial capacity. What he read made his blood run cold. Earth had over 200 nations that were now working together to build warships. The planet's industrial capacity was enormous and growing every day. Humans could build ships faster than any species the Valkyrie had ever encountered. Captain Lee and his crew worked to repair the New Dawn while analyzing data from their victory over Admiral Kethver's fleet. Dr. Kim had collected enough information about Valkyrie technology to revolutionize human engineering. The gap between alien and human capability was closing rapidly. Engineer Yoon supervised construction teams building new defense platforms throughout the Kepler system. The crew had learned that fighting from prepared positions gave them huge advantages over enemies who relied on mobile fleet tactics. The entire star system was becoming a fortress. Communications Officer Han Soo-jin maintained constant contact with Earth as more human ships were completed and began their journey to reinforce the New Dawn. 50 vessels were already in space, with 100 more under construction. The human war machine was just getting started. The Valkyrie Empire made a decision that would determine the fate of both species. Chancellor Mordek convinced the High Council to mobilize every available ship for a final assault on Earth itself. If they could destroy humanity's homeworld, the rebellion would collapse. Admiral Tolson was chosen to lead this ultimate fleet. He was younger than Admiral Kethver, but more ruthless and willing to use any weapon necessary to win. The new commander began assembling over 1,000 ships for the largest military operation in Valkyrie history. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim made contact with rebel forces on 3 different worlds using captured Valkyrie communication equipment. The rebels were desperate for weapons and tactical advice to fight their former masters. Captain Lee realized humanity had potential allies throughout the galaxy. The first alien refugees arrived at Kepler. 442 billion in damaged ships fleeing Valkyrie retaliation. They were Zephyrians with blue skin and 4 arms, who had been enslaved for 200 years. Their leader, Commander Zefkal, offered to share intelligence about Valkyrie military installation. Security Chief Lim worked with the alien refugees to establish a joint command structure. Humans had experience fighting against superior technology, while the aliens knew Valkyrie weaknesses and tactical doctrine. Together, they began planning coordinated strikes against Empire targets. Navigator Troy discovered that several key Valkyrie supply lines passed through systems that could be ambushed by small, fast ships. The Empire's logistical network was designed for controlling peaceful subjects not fighting a galaxy-wide war. Human hit-and-run tactics could cripple their ability to maintain. Large fleets. Engineer Yoon began mass-producing hybrid weapons that combined human engineering with alien energy systems. The new weapons were crude compared to pure Valkyrie technology, but they were effective and could be manufactured quickly using readily available materials. The tide of galactic opinion began shifting as news of human victories spread through space trade networks. Species that had never heard of Earth were learning about the brave humans who dared to fight the mighty Valkyrie. Empire. Some began sending secret messages of support. Captain Lee received intelligence that Admiral Tolson was assembling a massive fleet for an attack on Earth. The human captain realized that his small force could not defend humanity's home world against such overwhelming numbers. They needed a different strategy. Dr. Kim proposed a desperate plan based on her analysis of Valkyrie psychology. The Empire's power depended on maintaining an image of invincibility if they could defeat another major fleet. The psychological impact might cause the Empire to collapse from internal rebellions. The plan was simple but dangerous. Captain Lee would lead a combined human and alien force to attack the Valkyrie homeworld while Admiral Tolson's fleet was heading toward Earth. The timing would have to be perfect, and the risks were enormous. More refugees arrived daily, bringing news from across the Empire. The Crystalline Collective had declared independence and destroyed 3 Valkyrie garrison fleets. The Mothkari were sabotaging military installations, while the Velthani had captured an entire shipyard. Commander Zefkal provided detailed intelligence about the defenses around Valkyran. The Valkyrie homeworld, the planet, was protected by massive orbital fortresses and automated defense networks, but most of the mobile fleet was heading toward Earth. Captain Lee made a decision that would either save humanity or doom them to extinction. He would take 50 ships, including the New Dawn, and attack the heart of the Valkyrie Empire. While it was weakly defended, the crew prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. Engineer Yoon worked around the clock, installing the most advanced weapons and defenses available on every ship. In the human fleet, the vessels were a mix of human designs and captured alien ships, all modified with hybrid technology that gave them unique capabilities. The joint human-alien fleet departed Kepler system while monitoring Admiral Tolson's progress toward Earth. The Valkyrie commander had no idea that his enemies were about to strike at his homeworld while he was destroying theirs. The element of surprise was crucial. Dr. Kim continued analyzing Valkyrie technology during the journey to their home systems. She had discovered that their oldest installations used outdated security protocols that could be hacked using modified human computers. The plan was becoming more feasible. Communications officer Hansu Jin maintained contact with rebel forces throughout the Empire, coordinating their attacks to coincide with the assault on Valkyran. If everything went according to plan, the Empire would face simultaneous rebellions on dozens of worlds. The fleet reached the edge of Valkyrie home system after 2 weeks of careful travel. Captain Lee studied the tactical display showing orbital fortresses surrounding the planet like metal moons. Each installation could destroy a dozen human ships, but they were designed to fight external threat. Security Chief Lim had trained mixed human and alien boarding parties to capture the orbital fortresses from within. The plan required perfect timing and incredible courage, but it was their only chance to neutralize the planet's defenses. Navigator Troy plotted approach vectors that would minimize their exposure to the fortress weapons while maximizing the effectiveness of their assault. The mathematics were complex, but the concept was simple: hit hard, hit fast, and don't give the enemy time to respond. The attack began when rebel saboteurs on 3 different worlds simultaneously destroyed major Valkyrie military installations. The Empire's communication networks became flooded with emergency reports, making it difficult for commanders to coordinate responses. Captain Lee led his fleet into the Valkyrie home system just as Admiral Tolson's forces reached the outer edge of Earth's solar system. The 2 largest battles in galactic history were about to begin simultaneously on opposite sides of the galaxy. The orbital fortresses around Valkyran detected the approaching human fleet and began charging their massive energy weapons. Captain Lee ordered his ships to attack in waves using the same tactics that had worked against previous Valkyrie fleets. The battle for the Valkyrie homeworld began with human ships diving through the orbital defenses like metal arrows shot from a giant bow. Engineer Yoon had equipped each vessel with electromagnetic pulse generators that could temporarily disable fortress weapons. Dr. Kim coordinated the electronic warfare assault while Security Chief Lim led boarding parties against the fortresses. The humans and their alien allies fought with the desperation of beings who knew defeat meant extinction. For their species, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as two species fought for survival among the stars. The age of Valkyrie dominance was ending, but what would replace it remained to be seen. The only certainty was that the universe would never be the same. The battle for Valkyran raged across 3 dimensions as human ships weaved between the massive orbital fortresses. Like fighters dancing around giants, Captain Lee watched his tactical display while coordinating attacks with alien allies who had waited centuries for this moment of revenge. Commander Zefkal led a squadron of Zephyrian ships against the northern fortress chain, while Security Chief Lim's boarding parties assaulted the weapons platforms from within. The combination of external bombardment and internal sabotage was overwhelming the Valkyrie defenses. Dr. Kim worked frantically at her science station, hacking into the fortress control networks. Using modified human computers, the Valkyrie had never imagined that their security systems could be compromised by such primitive technology. Her fingers flew across the interfaces. Engineer Yoon monitored the fleet's condition while managing power distribution to weapons and shields. 12 human ships had been destroyed, but they had knocked out 6 orbital fortresses. The trade was acceptable considering what they were trying to accomplish. The Valkyrie Planetary Defense Command was in chaos as reports flooded in from across their empire. 17 worlds were in open rebellion while their home system was under direct attack. The careful order they had maintained for 1,000 years was collapsing. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Tolson's massive fleet engaged Earth's hastily assembled defenses. The human homeworld had prepared for this attack with typical efficiency, turning their entire solar system into a weapon pointed at the approaching enemy. Mars had been converted into a military shipyard working around the clock to produce vessels for the defense fleet. The asteroid belt bristled with automated weapons platforms, while Jupiter's moons served as bases for hit and run attacks against Valkyrie formations, but the defenders were badly outnumbered and slowly being pushed back toward Earth itself. Admiral Tolson commanded over 800 ships against less than 200 human vessels. The mathematics of the battle seemed hopeless for humanity. Captain Lee received updates from Earth while fighting his way toward the Valkyrie homeworld. The news was grim but not unexpected. Admiral Tolson was a competent commander who would not make the same mistakes as his predecessor's navigator Choi plotted a course through the remaining orbital defenses toward the planet. Surface Captain Lee planned to land troops directly on Valkyran and capture the High Council. The psychological impact of such a victory might end the war immediately. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kim successfully hacked the central fortress control network. From her position aboard the New Dawn, she began turning the Valkyrie weapons against each other. The massive energy cannons that had protected the planet for centuries opened fire on their sister installations. Commander Zefkal could not believe what he was seeing. The humans were using Valkyrie technology to destroy Valkyrie defenses. It was a level of tactical brilliance that left him amazed and grateful he had chosen the right side in this war. Security Chief Lim's boarding parties captured fortress after fortress as the Valkyrie defenders fell back in confusion. The Empire's soldiers had been trained to fight external enemies, not infiltrators who understood their own systems better than they did the last orbital fortress. Fell when Engineer Yoon used a captured Valkyrie ship to ram its power core. The explosion lit up the night sky of Valkyran like a second sun and opened the way for ground assault troops to land on the planet. Surface Captain Lee led the first wave of landing ships toward the Valkyrie capital city. The buildings were tall and graceful, like crystal spears reaching toward the sky, but they were not designed to withstand military assault. The humans came prepared for urban warfare. The Valkyrie High Council met in emergency session as human ships landed in their capital. The 12 rulers who had controlled the galaxy were now trapped on their own world facing enemies they had underestimated. The irony was not lost on them. Dr. Kim established communication links with rebel forces throughout the Empire, coordinating their attacks to maximize damage to Valkyrie infrastructure. Every spaceport, weapons factory, and command center that fell weakened the Empire's ability to continue fighting. Meanwhile, Admiral Tolson received news of the attack on his homeworld. The shock nearly caused him to break off his assault on Earth. But military discipline kept him focused on his mission. He had come too far to turn back. Now the battle for Earth entered its final phase as human defenders made their last stand around their home planet. Every ship captain, pilot, and gunner knew they were fighting for the survival of their species. There was no retreat and no surrender. Captain Lee's ground forces fought through the streets of the Valkyrie capital using tactics learned from centuries of human warfare. The aliens had superior individual technology, but humans excelled at coordinated unit actions and adapting to changing conditions. Commander Zefkal provided crucial intelligence about the layout of government buildings, while other alien allies secured landing zones for reinforcements. The coalition of rebel species was proving more effective than anyone had dared hope. Engineer Yoon converted captured Valkyrie vehicles into mobile weapons platforms, while Dr. Kim hacked government communication networks to broadcast surrender demands directly to Valkyrie military units. Many alien soldiers began laying down their weapons. The turning point came when Security Chief Lim's assault team breached the High Council chambers. Chancellor Mordick and 3 other council members were captured alive while the rest died fighting. The government that had ruled for 1,000 years was finished. News of the council's capture spread across the Empire faster than light-speed communication could carry it. Valkyrie military units began surrendering en masse while rebel forces claimed victory on world after world. The psychological war was over. Admiral Tolson received the news while his fleet was fighting in Earth's upper atmosphere. His government was gone, his homeworld was captured, and his empire was collapsing around him. The admiral faced a choice between continuing a hopeless fight or accepting defeat. The human defenders of Earth pressed their advantage as Valkyrie morale collapsed. Captain Park Jin-ho led a desperate charge that broke through the alien formation and threatened Admiral Tolson's command ship. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. Dr. Kim used the captured communication networks to broadcast terms of surrender to the remaining Valkyrie forces. The choice was simple: lay down their weapons and live, or continue fighting and die. The empire that had seemed invincible was asking for mercy. Captain Lee stood in the ruins of the High Council chambers, holding a communication device that connected him to Admiral Tolson. The 2 commanders spoke across the galaxy while their forces continued fighting around Earth and Valkyrie. Alien Admiral was a professional soldier who recognized when a war was lost. He ordered his remaining ships to cease fire and prepare for surrender. The largest military operation in Valkyrie history ended not with victory, but with complete defeat. Engineer Yoon began organizing relief efforts for the countless species that had been enslaved by the Empire. The Zephyrians, Crystalline Collective, and dozens of other races would need help rebuilding their civilizations. After centuries of oppression, the news of victory reached every corner of the galaxy. Within days, species that had lived in fear for generations began celebrating their freedom. Humans had not just defeated the Valkyrie Empire, they had liberated an entire galaxy. But Captain Lee knew the real work was just beginning. Destroying a tyrannical government was easier than building a just replacement. The galaxy needed new systems of cooperation and trade that would prevent another empire from rising. Dr. Kim proposed the creation of a galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. Each species would maintain their independence while working together for mutual defense and prosperity. It was an idea that had never been tried on such a scale. The proposal was debated by representatives from over 50 different species on the neutral world of Haven Prime. The discussions were heated but productive as former enemies learned to work together toward common goals. Commander Zefkal became the first non-human to serve alongside humans in a joint military command. His experience with Valkyrie tactics and his understanding of galactic politics made him invaluable in the transition period. Security Chief Lim established training programs to help former slave species build their own defense forces. The galaxy would never again be defenseless against would-be conquerors. Every world would have the means to protect itself. Navigator Choi began mapping new trade routes that would connect the liberated worlds in networks of commerce and communication. The economic prosperity that followed would help ensure that the alliance remained strong. The age of human expansion had begun not through conquest but through liberation. Humanity had earned its place among the stars by fighting for the freedom of all species. The galaxy would remember this lesson for generations to come. 1 year after the fall of the Velkari Empire, Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships from 47 different species dock at the massive space facility. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition, and humanity stood at the center of that transformation. The Galactic Alliance had grown from an emergency coalition into a thriving organization dedicated to peace and mutual prosperity. Dr. Kim served as the Alliance's chief scientist, developing new technologies that all member species could share rather than hoard. Engineer Yoon directed construction projects across a dozen star systems, building infrastructure that would connect the galaxy in ways the Velkari had never allowed. Trade routes, shipping lanes, and communication networks spread between worlds like veins, carrying the lifeblood of civilization. The former Velkari worlds had been the most difficult to integrate into the Alliance. Many of their people could not accept that their empire was gone forever. Some joined human-led expeditions to explore uncharted regions, while others struggled with the loss of their superior status. Commander Zefkal had become the Alliance's military coordinator, working with Security Chief Lim to establish defense protocols that would protect member worlds from future threats. The galaxy was peaceful now, but vigilance was the price of continued freedom. Navigator Choi led the Deep Space Exploration Division, mapping unknown regions and making contact with species that had hidden from the Velkari Empire. Each new discovery added to the Alliance's diversity and strength. The galaxy seemed infinite and full of wonders. Communications Officer Han Soo-jin managed the massive network that kept Alliance worlds in contact with each other. Information flowed freely for the first time in galactic history, allowing scientific and cultural exchange on an unprecedented scale. The New Dawn had been retired from active service and converted into a museum. Orbiting Earth, millions of beings from across the galaxy came to see the ship that had started the revolution against tyranny. Children of many species played in exhibits that told the story of human courage, but not everyone was happy with the new galactic order. Remnants of the Velkari military had formed resistance groups in the Outer Rim systems. They launched raids against Alliance shipping and tried to rebuild their fallen empire through terrorism and sabotage. Captain Lee now served as Supreme Commander of Alliance Defense Forces, coordinating responses to these threats with the same tactical brilliance that had defeated the Empire. His reputation had grown to legendary proportions throughout the galaxy. Dr. Kim made a discovery that revolutionized galactic civilization while studying artifacts from a long-dead species. She found evidence of an ancient network of portals that could transport ships instantly between star systems.